Okay. Well, welcome everyone in person and online. My name is Matt Butler from Do Good Foundation. We've got a great crowd here tonight, and we're here to talk about the 4th Street Bridge, give a quick update on the bridge, all of our advocacy thus far, and where things stand. We have some great guest speakers here tonight, which I'll be calling up after I'm finished presenting. And they're going to talk about a few different key issues that are still outstanding that we still need KYTC to move for us. So without further ado, we'll get started here. And when we think about the 4th Street Bridge, we take a little bit of a look back in history. This is the bridge that was there in 1850, a nice suspension bridge. That actually some locals were in a hurry to get across, and history has it that they drove some cattle across and before it was finished, and the bridge actually partially collapsed and they had to rebuild it. And then this is a bridge from 1900. You can see that there was a toll booth to the side there, and also rail tracks going down the center. So some of the things that we'll be talking about tonight, not tolls, but rail. And Cora, can you move your cursor over? Thank you. And then the current bridge, circa about 1940 to any time now. And what's the future bridge going to look like, right? And how long is that going to stand? The current bridge is 80-something years old, so we figure 75 years is, probably a reasonable time frame for this next bridge. And that's why it's important that we're here. That's why it's important that everyone is speaking out, because the decisions that are being made right now will impact not just us, not just our children, but their children, future generations. And there's a historic neighborhood on one side of this bridge, so it's not like we can easily just build companion bridges next to this bridge if we want to add something like a streetcar later on. So kind of get you up to speed on our community engagement thus far. Hub & Weber was engaged. They were in Covington, an architectural firm. They just moved to Cincinnati to lead the designs. We put together a community working group with Newport and Covington leaders for refinement of the initial designs that were put together. And then we did an online survey where 1,400 people voted on 3 different designs. And then the spoke design, which you saw out in the hallway and on the previous slide, was the #1 vote getter from the public. And as part of this, we had a petition campaign. 800 plus petitions were emailed to leaders all across in Newport and Covington. We did a Newport open house. We did a Covington open house. We did a virtual reality open house in Covington. And then we did a Newport Council presentation, and 2 members of the community got up and read some comments from the public at that presentation. We had members of the community ask the City of Covington to have us present, have a public comment session, and we weren't successful in getting that through. So tonight we're having the people's public hearing. This is all about you guys. So you get to come up and say whatever is on your mind about this, what you want to see, and all of the comments will be delivered. We're going to send a copy to KYTC, to City of Covington, City of Newport. KYTC is saying that they're still accepting public comment. So that's good news. And so there's still time to make change and let KYTC know what we want. So talk about some mobility trends worldwide. We can kind of look at what's happening, kind of help us predict the future, what we want our city to be. So worldwide, there are over 250 tram or streetcar systems, and that's growing. Cincinnati is looking to expand their streetcar system. There's a group in Newport that wants to bring it to Newport. So kind of makes sense to prepare our connection to Newport here in Covington for that possibility. The repopulation of urban areas, right? More people are now moving back to urban areas from suburbs, exurbs. Certainly work from home, right, has changed the way people commute. And the valuing of unique places and creating a sense of community, like a shared third space, right? So like church, like bridge, places to gather that feel like it's part of the community and not just a place that we're passing through. Our population's aging, and we definitely need more mobility options, right? It's not going to work out if we have a bunch of 85-year-olds driving automobiles around, and that's where we're headed population-wise. They need options, and just sticking them out in the suburbs is not an appealing option, I don't think. We need to engage with those folks and have them be part of the fabric of the community. Rising car costs. Just a few years ago, it was over $10,000 to a year for an automobile, which has only gone up. And our costs to maintain car infrastructure, we can't maintain the number of lane miles that we have right now, right? There's potholes everywhere, and things are just kind of falling apart, and we're having a difficult time prioritizing where do we spend our dollars, because it's finite. Also climate change. The automobile is in Cincinnati, in the greater Cincinnati area. Its share of CO2 is 36%. Our buildings are getting greener, right? We're able to insulate them. We're able to add new heat pumps, and our power plants are getting greener, right? But the automobiles share is not going down. So we need different modes of transportation, different options there. And also positive health outcomes from active transportation, right? And the data shows that people lead healthier lives when they're out walking or when they're out riding a bike rather than sitting behind the wheel of a car. So when we look at our plans, OKI is our Metropolitan Planning Organization. They're the ones that house regional transportation plans. They have a very large plan called the North-South Transportation Plan, several thousand pages long. There's a link to it if you want to check it out. In there, they have commuter rail. And commuter rail is lined up to have the 4th Street Bridge as a corridor, as a connection between Newport and Covington. So, I think we have to ask our elected leaders. This was all approved. OKI is controlled by our elected leaders. Why are we not following this plan? When we talk about vehicle traffic on the 4th Street Bridge, it's really kind of hard to see these red dots up there. That's actually the projections that KYTC has projected in 2040. The leftmost data point is 2010 actual, and the rightmost on the yellow line is 2022. So this, the city of Newport took traffic counts for us in 2022. So you can see that it's declined, and westbound has declined pretty significantly. We also want to consider our most vulnerable neighbors. West Newport has 40% zero-car households. So how do they get around, right? And we want to make sure that there's safe mobility options. Overall, in the greater Cincinnati area, about 20% of households don't have automobiles. So West Newport has about double that. So it's really important that they be able to connect in with the greater community for jobs, shopping, school, play, things like that. And then thinking about that is path connections to existing and future trails. A little kind of hard to see in this rendering, but the right side is Newport Route 9 there with the, it's a bike or pedestrian roundabout, and nice and green. And then, you know, that's been envisioned to connect in to the path on the north side, and then also on the Covington side, connections as well. And then, in the words of Ken Recton, we need consideration of connections to GJT Park is very important. Thank you, Ken. So where do things stand? I think that we're all collectively having an impact. Community wins. KYTC is now saying that there will be a physically separate, they will physically separate people on bikes from vehicles. This was not in the original plan that they had put together. Yeah. In 2015. So this is a really big win. And I know that folks in the community have been speaking out about this for a number of years, and KYTC has listened. And today, which we'll have their slide here that they released today, they're saying that it's going to be 2 12-foot paths on both the north side and the south side of the bridge, which is, I think, pretty generous. They've moved on the south side as well. I believe in the scoping study that sidewalk is what they had called it was 6 feet. So they've doubled the size. So that's really fantastic as well. We had, you know, Hub and Weber had envisioned it on the north side, basically as a cost savings factor. But having it on the south side is not detrimental, I think, in any capacity on having it on both sides. And also, they're saying a signature design. Of course, what does that mean, right? And they've released some ideas today on what they think that means, and we'll cover those in a second. So some outstanding issues, and our experts here tonight will be talking about this, is complete teardown of the old bridge to fix any alignment issues, especially in Covington with 4th Street, stopping the drive lane expansion from 3 to 4 lanes, and making sure the bridge can accommodate future streetcars. So today, coincidentally, maybe, KYTC had this press release, and I apologize, it's a little difficult to read. But they released 4 drawings, and you know, I think a little bit different than what they had released in 2015, 2016, and I think they did some other things at their one public meeting. And they said the paths are going to be 12 feet in this release, but they also said some other interesting things that community leaders from Newport and Covington will bring valuable input from their constituents to the project team for consideration in the final bridge. So I think that this is important, that KYTC is saying we want to hear from the cities, and we want to make sure that the people are represented in this. And then they're going to be presenting these concepts this coming Tuesday in Covington at the commission meeting, and then Monday, August 28th at the commission meetings. And they're going to make a final selection in October. So we'll get to the call to action here later, but those 2 meetings are going to be our call to action after tonight. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Brian Gabeau. Brian is a senior engineer in the Division of Transportation and Planning for the City of Cincinnati. He is responsible for the engineering of bike and pedestrian infrastructure. And he is here to talk to you tonight about the complete teardown and rebuild.
Hello, everyone. As Matt said, my name is Brian Gubo. I am a Covington resident. I'm not just here because I'm a Covington resident. I ride across this bridge probably 3 or 5 times a week. Our son's daycare is right next to the first roundabout on the east side of the bridge. So this is our route, at least for the next, tomorrow I think is his last day, and then he starts kindergarten. So we've been riding across this bridge for about 3 years now, so I'm pretty familiar with the ins and outs. As Matt mentioned, it is great news that we have moved the needle and that there is a shared use path on both sides of the proposed bridge now. While that is welcome, there is still an issue of we're not all here just for bike and pedestrian safety and for transit infrastructure. There's still a lot of people, obviously, that are going to drive cars, and whether those cars impact people in other modes or not, we all have loved ones and friends and neighbors who will be in those cars. So the car safety issue is still a really big deal, even with the points that we have won pluses on. So one of the bigger ones here is on the west side with Covington. As Matt mentioned, the alignment that has been shown or shared, as you see on the screen, has a pretty big offset jog. There are 2 lanes going westbound on the bridge, going to 4th Street. Obviously, I'm in favor of not taking any of the historic structures there west of Girard, as they show. However, there needs to be some way to get rid of that jog, and I don't know what that is if it's buying a strip take from that vacant commercial property to the north, but there needs to be some relenting on that portion right there by itself. Another is their insistence on having 2 new structures making up the bridge. From my perspective on it, the whole angle on that is different from the 2015 report that was prepared by the design team, consultants in the state, which recommended a complete tear down and then replacement in the same spot. So somewhere in between there, they came to a decision that they had to keep car traffic going across this point of the Licking River constantly. That is causing part of the problem in the future build, and that you will have 4 lanes, which is one of the biggest points that we are trying to advocate for now, is that you will have all that excess capacity as well as increased cost, and you will have to deal with it for 100 years rather than just dealing with something for 12 to 24 months. And I'm not saying that's not an inconvenience, and there are some ways to mitigate it, but it's a long-term problem that our children and grandchildren will have to deal with. So I would estimate, without seeing the details of what design is selected, obviously there are 4 alternatives still being selected. All of them have different costs involved, all have different constructability issues that would revolve around them. However, I would say that the costs would probably be somewhere between 10 and 20% less by just closing this connection down and replacing the bridge in place. And I would say that time frame savings would be somewhere between 20 and 40%. And that is without knowing, obviously, the selected structure type and other things that are involved, including contractors' preferences on things. But that is the biggest points that can be made out of this. I understand why they are taking land from a parking lot rather than a building. I understand, the demolishing of something that's built. However, it seems like there is a lot of movement that could be made to increase the safety for the westbound cars going on to 4th Street. And then it was going to be proposed before today's announcement that if they had to have 4 lanes during this construction period, that turned one of the eastbound lanes into a shared use path, but they've kind of taken that argument away. But we can always turn that lane into a wider shared use path on the eastbound leg. So that would be the biggest thing that I see out of this, is if they had to go with the 2 structures, that we could always take away the 1 lane. But I would like to add, not only is there a connectivity issue with the streets on the west side, but on the east side is the roundabout structure that was built a few years ago on Route 8 and 9. That roundabout is probably a little bit over-designed. And I think it was this morning. This morning I saw a box truck probably doing 25 or 30 through it, coming from Taylor Southgate going towards this structure. And if a truck that big can go that fast through there, which is supposed to have a chicane type of a movement through it, then something was wrong. And if we have 2 lanes going in and out of that roundabout, there is nothing to stop trucks that large or smaller and even bigger from doing those same speeds. And as you know, with roundabouts, pedestrians are pretty much guessing if cars are going to stop for them when they cross. So if we're going to have all this increased mobility across the bridge structure itself, then when they get to the roundabout on the east side, they're going to end up guessing with all that traffic flying through the intersection. So I would say, I would make a point that that side is as strong an argument as this west side as far as what we advocate for to KYTC. And I think one simple way to do it, which also reduces cost, is if they insist on having 4 lanes on the bridge, is to make it 1 lane coming in and out of the roundabout until the structure starts. That would at least give people less time to be able to pass before they get garroted if they're going westbound. And if they're going eastbound, they know they're going to have to merge down before they hit the roundabout. So that is pretty much my takeaway, my segment, without stepping on other people's toes that are going to speak. So on that, I will turn it over to Mel.
Thank you, Brian. Next, I'd like to introduce Mel McVeigh. Mel is a senior city planner in the Division of Transportation and Planning for the City of Cincinnati. She oversees the rapidly expanding bike and pedestrian infrastructure programs.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I work at the City of Cincinnati with Brian. I am primarily responsible for the city's pedestrian safety program, which is now basically become a traffic calming program. But I am also a resident of Covington, so this is really important to me personally. Typically, we see speeding in Cincinnati because there are more lanes there than are necessary, and it creates this wide open feel and experience for drivers that psychologically makes you feel like you can go faster, right? If you think about places where you tend to drive slower, they're often places that are more built out. Maybe there's a wall next to you, or the buildings are closer to the curb, and you kind of subconsciously just slow down when you're driving because you know you have less space to make a mistake. But on the streets where we have multiple lanes, wide open spaces, those are the streets where we really struggle with speeding, and we're doing everything we can to fix that. And primarily, the way that we do that is by removing travel lanes and repurposing them in some way. So sometimes they become a center turn lane, sometimes, very often, they become a protected bike lane now, or on-street parking. But that is almost the bulk of my day-to-day job, is finding ways to reuse these excess travel lanes that were either over-designed decades ago or in places where the population has just changed, and we realized that the projections were just wrong, as they tend to be. No offense, Brian. Engineers tend to over-project what traffic volumes are going to be. And if you look at Cincinnati's most, popular, thriving, vibrant neighborhoods, those neighborhoods have been there for over 100 years, but we've not had to expand any of the streets around them. They're thriving because they are pedestrian scale neighborhoods and streets. And in the 15 years I've been working in transportation planning, I've never had to expand a street because we underestimated how much traffic there was going to be. It's always the opposite, basically always reducing. Let's see, what else did I want to say? Yeah, basically we are taking every opportunity we can to reduce the size of streets. We are constantly applying for grants. It's really expensive to do it. So not only in this case are we spending excess dollars to make the bridge bigger than it needs to be, at some point we're going to have to spend more money to narrow it back down, as Brian said, by putting some really ugly Jersey barriers, to block off a lane or something like that. So it's money wasted, basically. That's pretty much it. Unnecessary construction expense, yeah. Crossing distance, yeah. As you've all experienced, I'm sure personally, the wider a street is, the tougher it is to get across before the cars are coming, the more at risk you are. In short, I would say the current designs just do not reflect best practice in current transportation design. They are incredibly out of date with what's going on in the rest of America. Brian and I are lucky enough to get to work with our peers in other cities across the US, and everyone is dealing with this same issue of streets that were over-designed and how we're now going to retrofit them. So it's something everyone's struggling with, and it's really unfortunate that KYTC isn't quite on board with best practices. But hopefully, if we all keep talking about it enough, they're going to hear our voices.
Thank you, Mel. Our next gentleman, John Schneider, was a founding board member of Downtown Cincinnati, Inc., and served as his first Transportation Committee Chairman. He is a frequent speaker on rail transit, played an important role in returning passenger rail transit to Cincinnati after a 60-year absence, and is championing to expand the current streetcar system. Please welcome John.
I'm gonna get some water.
So I'm going to keep this slide up until he...
I'm not gonna speak for a long time, don't worry. First of all, just to bring all of you up to date on Cincinnati streetcar, it will carry over 1 million passengers this year. It almost certainly, Metro doesn't publish their ridership figures as quickly as a streetcar does, but it almost certainly carried more passengers in July than any transit route in the entire region. This is a streetcar that people wanted to kill, 6, 7 years ago, if you recall. So that's the streetcar report. So the new 4th Street Bridge must be designed for rail transit. But first, a little history. This history begins with Dr. Daniel Drake, who was a founder of the University of Cincinnati and one of our city's, my city, Cincinnati's leading citizens of his day. In 1815, Dr. Drake had a vision for a new bridge connecting Covington with Cincinnati, linking Vine Street and Scott Street, a grand boulevard like he had seen in Europe. Covington was very enthusiastic about this. Its street grid was already aligned with Cincinnati's. You all know that when you now stand on the banks, the streets all line up. And by the 1830s, Lexington wanted a better connection to Cincinnati, which was, Cincinnati at the time was one of the fastest growing cities in America. It was sort of the Phoenix or Austin of its day, and it would become the 6th largest city in America by 1850. So Kentucky chartered the Covington and Cincinnati Bridge Company in 1846 with some stipulations. First, no slave was allowed to travel on the bridge without his or her owner, really. And if a slave escaped from a southern state using the bridge company had to compensate the owner for the loss of that slave. We've come a long way, obviously, since that day. Steamboat owners, regarding the new bridge, they complained that the new bridge would make their tall stack, well, they have to take down their tall stacks. Not true, but that's what they said. And they also said it would cause ice jams. The commercial interests in Cincinnati fear the competition from Covington businesses. That argument still goes on today. The ferry owners, if you can imagine, were very opposed to a new bridge. All this opposition delayed Ohio's approval of the bridge, granting a charter of the bridge for 3 years until 1849. But Cincinnati interests were still not finished messing with the Covington-Cincinnati Bridge. They shifted it half a block east, as you know, off the Vine Street, Scott Street alignment to make it more inconvenient for people to use the bridge. And traffic engineers and motorists have dealt with that problem for the succeeding 156 years. I came across that way tonight. It still exists. Which reminds me of a famous saying by Sir Winston Churchill. We shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. Just as the Roebling Bridge shaped the connection between Covington and Cincinnati, shaped it poorly, that is, we are now shaping the connection that the Kentucky riverfront cities will enjoy for probably the next 100 years, as Matt said. So here's what's necessary to ensure that this bridge, can be as good as it can be. Can I have the next slide, please? She's got her earphones. Oh, okay, great. I hope you can all see this. The new bridge must include what is called a sacrificial slab to make it available for future rail transit. This is a slide of showing a sacrificial slab. Basically, the trackway for the future rails is boxed out. A box is created inside the overall pour of the bridge. To a depth of about 12 inches, all the structural steel of the bridge is kept below that box. And you can see here the rails are laid in, and what happens is the first concrete pour, let's say the dark gray part here, is allowed to cure, and then a second pour called a cold pour is poured in to fill that void in the middle there without the rails. And it forms a weak bond, and the beauty of this is that when you get ready to put the rails in, you jackhammer out that center part there without affecting the existing structure, put the rails in, and pour the concrete back in. This is a common construction technique. Engineers design it all the time, builders build it all the time. It doesn't cost much to do it. It's just planning for the future. This is what Cincinnati did in 1999 when it built the two bridges over Fort Washington Way at Main and Walnut Street. We built sacrificial slabs in one lane of each of those two bridges so that we knew rail would go there someday, and by 2015, 16 years later, we jackhammered it up and put the rails in, didn't disrupt traffic. Had we not done that, if we would have built those bridges conventionally, we would have had to essentially rebuild the bridges to put rail across it, which is basically why I'm here tonight, the problem I'm trying to help you all avoid. So the Commonwealth needs to do the same thing, make the bridge, the new bridge, ready for rail for whenever Covington and Newport want to invest in the connection. It will happen sooner or later. So my message is, let the future unfold as it may want to do. Box out the bridge deck for future rails now. Don't box out the future by building the bridge without a provision for future rail. Don't be like Kentucky's 1840 legislators, the ones who fretted that slaves would escape over the new Ohio River Bridge. Don't be like the Cincinnati ferry owner, Samuel Wiggins, who led the effort to shift the Roebling Bridge away from its current alignment and caused it to be the way it is today. Any public officials in the room, don't be that guy. I urge you to look to the future when Newport and Covington are more densely populated. Look around, that's obviously happening. When cars are less important, and when citizens demand more transportation choices. We need to prepare for that future today and make the 4th Street Bridge ready for rail. Future generations of Commonwealth citizens and visitors of the Commonwealth will thank us for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you to our expert speakers. Now we're here to the point in our night where it's all about you guys and the public comment session. So when we call your name, all you need to do is come up here. Looks like, do you know how many minutes, Jody, per? Okay, we'll figure it out, but first person just start talking and I'll do the counting while you're talking. So Gina Estes, please come up. Yeah, right here.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Gina Estes. I live at 316 Garrett, right by the bridge. How many of us all exist for the benefit of the automobile? Raise a hand. Me neither. They're here for us. We have to break this way of thinking that transportation is primarily about as many cars as possible, getting from point A to point B as fast as possible. Covington doesn't exist for its east-west surface roads to bulk up, so more vehicles can have more ways to get from 75 to 471. I want to add to the community wins already mentioned. In the 2000s, Licking Riverside neighbors learned of long-range transportation plans, which called for the 4th Street Bridge replacement to have 6 lanes. Did everybody throw up in their mouths a little bit just now? Oh, wait a second. Let us all gather ourselves. Many volunteers worked for many years to effect a change. We agitated for strategic planning where it wasn't happening already. And then we volunteered on those planning boards to ensure that a change would come about. And I'm really grateful that the Transportation Cabinet and the decision makers were receptive to that. So we got it down from 6 lanes to 4. So we shouldn't give up. We got that far. We should fight for the last one because there's still one too many. I feel like as a society, we're still stuck in this way of thinking. Just keep adding lanes. It's all about cars. And it's proven, as previous speakers stated, we know that just encourages more people to drive. More space opens up psychologically, everybody goes faster. We know this, so I don't understand why we're still building this way. It's so backwards. And to not allow for any real mass transit plan, you know, in the new bridge. It's barely a nod to it, I believe. They talk about having an extra wide lane so maybe a streetcar can fit in that one. That's not allowing for rail. They're barely even faking it, you know. Traffic studies have established the need is not there. Spewing more and more blacktop to induce demand is not wise planning, to say nothing of the disastrous impact to the safety of everybody on bike or on foot and to the quality of life of the areas impacted. We have to carefully consider what we already see with the impact of adding lanes, like Cincinnati's 2nd Street. That's a surface street freeway. When people get off of 75 South, they barrel through there as long as the lights hold for them, and often when the lights don't hold for them. It's terrifying as a pedestrian or a cyclist or somebody with mobility issues. They don't want you there. The message is, get the hell out if you don't have a motorized vehicle. That's what you feel. Covington's Martin Luther King corridor, it has this horrible issue with speed now that it got fattened up, you know? We already have horrible trouble with excessive speeds on the 4th Street Bridge. Traffic studies have shown that. We don't need more car lanes. We need safety for everyone, whether they're on foot, on a bike, on a wheelchair, in a car, whatever the mode of transportation. Design must first assure safety for all. We have to invest in public transportation. I don't understand how it's possible that no real infrastructure, again, for streetcars was allowed for. We can't keep slinging more and more and more blacktop so that more and more cars can get more and more places as fast as bloody possible. We got to focus on safety and quality of life for everyone and acknowledge the data that shows that adding a lane is not necessary. That's it.
Thank you. Just so you know, it's 3.5 minutes, so everyone gets to speak. All right, Rachel Compte. Welcome, Rachel. There's plenty.
Oh, no, we're on camera.
You're on camera.
Sorry.
We'll have to move the camera. We'll have to move the camera so they can see you.
No, that's fine.
No.
Good, okay. I just wanted to say it's exciting to see so many people here supporting this and hearing about how simple it would be to add future ability to add tracks, you know, that removable section. I really, really hope we do that. It is very exciting to see that we have separate lanes for pedestrians and bikes already added, which is great. That's great progress. Coming from a larger city, I moved here from Washington, D.C., and that is the one thing I miss the most, is the transit and being able to live without a car. So I'm excited to see everyone here, and I will support from Newport as much as I can. That's it.
Thank you. All right, Nolan. And Nolan, thank you for your service.
Compatriots, I address you now as a private citizen, no longer as a commissioner in Covington. On Tuesday, I officially resigned, confident that my place on the commission was not going to allow me to make the difference I wanted to make. I don't need to go into details, but if you watch the meetings, I'm sure you'll understand my decision. But tonight we're here to discuss the 4th Street Bridge. As a commissioner, I received hundreds and hundreds of emails urging me to right-size the bridge. It was by far the most organized email campaign during my office. So good job. And there was an update from KYTC this afternoon, as Matt introduced, that's showing that that effort is working. But we must push harder for the future of Covington. For me, a resident of Licking Riverside, an urban planner, and a former urban biker, the priorities are slow traffic down so that Route 8 doesn't become a connection between I-75 and 471, make room for the streetcar only lanes, and lessen the impact of drive lanes on our landscape, so keep it to 2 lanes of car lanes. My realization is that KYTC answers to the state. Let's call our representatives and senators. So get out your notepads or your phone notepads or whatever and contact these people. Shelley Funky Frohmeyer. Shelley Funky Frohmeyer is a senator. Her jurisdiction is mostly Campbell County, but a little sliver of Kenton County, right where the bridge is. Shelley Funky Frohmeyer has a strong focus on family values, traditional family values. So when you speak to Shelley Funky Frohmeyer, really talk about how an increased size bridge could be detrimental to family values, detrimental to kids, etc. Also contact Rachel Roberts. Rachel Roberts expressed concern that we're having all these new units going in for the Ovation development. Those people are going to need to drive. Expressed that those people are moving here to have an urban lifestyle. Contact Kim Mosier. Kim Mosier, while her jurisdiction doesn't overlap this bridge, overlaps a lot of Covington. Kim Mosier has a very strong focus on public health. She's very concerned with public health, so concentrate on that. Stephanie Dietz. Stephanie Dietz is a representative. She's a family law attorney, and she is a marathon runner who understands what it's like to cross street after street after street in training for marathons. So she knows what it's like to be a pedestrian. And contact Chris McDaniel, a senator in Kenton County. He is all about fiscal responsibility. Talk to him about how a smaller bridge could save the state money. Also contact Buddy Wheatley. Buddy Wheatley is running for Secretary of State with Bashir. He's a Covingtonian and bicyclist, and he's all over Twitter, so tweet him, Buddy Wheatley. And then, of course, contact Andy Bashir. It's an election year. He is introduced Complete Streets initiative in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, so please contact Andy Bashir. And finally, go to the 2 meetings. April 15th, there's going to be a presentation in Covington, but the public comment is not that day. Public comment is August 22nd. 6 p.m. is the cutoff for signing up. Address Mayor Meyer. He's on the Aesthetics Committee. Newport meeting is August 28th. Thanks again for your efforts to push for sustainability, streetcar-only lanes, reasonable speeds, fiscal responsibility, community character, and equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Nolan. I just want to say KYTC was invited to this meeting, and they said they appreciate the invite. We said, hey, if you want to present, you can, and they said they were kind of busy tonight. So that was Jake Ryle at KYTC. Sheila Gray, you're up next.
I'm Sheila Gray from Covington, not the one on Channel 5, but I very much admire her. So first I want to let you know that I'm a bike commuter. I've been a bike commuter for the last 25 years, but most recently, for 2 years, I was biking the 9 miles from my neighborhood in Pieselberg, 19th Street, over to a Bryanville neighborhood of Cincinnati where I was teaching. The most stressful and dangerous part of that entire route, which except for the Purple People Bridge was all in the street, was the 4th Street Bridge, because eastbound in the morning there was no room for cars to get around me to allow for the required by law 3 feet room that they had to provide for a bicyclist. Westbound in the evenings when I'd be coming home, there were the 2 lanes. They could get around me, but then when I got to the Covington side of the bridge, I had to do this Frogger action to get from the right-hand lane where I was crossing the bridge over to the left side of what was then 4th Street to make my left turn on Scott. So fortunately, with the new announcement, the separated bike lanes will address the safety concerns of the 4th Street Bridge, but we still have work to do. So we still have 2 very walkable neighborhoods, Covington and Newport, being connected by a bridge. And we want to keep that bridge travel speed down. And we know the best way to do that is to keep it to the current 3 travel lanes. We know that Covington wants to make Scott and Garrett, that are now one-way streets, they want to make them 2 ways. Why? The only reason Mayor Meyer told me that they want to make them 2 ways is to slow that traffic down. So Covington acknowledges that they want traffic in the downtown area to be traveling slower, to keep everyone safe, to make us a more walkable community. Newport, with all of their construction around the 4th Street Bridge area, has incorporated sidewalks, has incorporated crosswalks, is obviously showing the desire to make that area walkable. We know that everyone at Ovation is going to want to walk over to all of the evening activities at Covington. They don't want to drive over and pay for parking. They want to be able to walk over. So why would we connect those 2 very walkable neighborhoods with a 4-lane bridge of high speed? So let's do what those neighborhoods want, and let's make that bridge a 3-lane, low-speed bridge to support the 2 walkable communities. In addition to the walkability of it, it does need to be allocated for future rail. Currently, I'm at Covington Classical Academy. I'm the 5th day director, so I plan field trips every week for the students. When we go over to Cincinnati, we don't need to get drivers for cars. We walk across the Roebling and we take the streetcar. We did it over 10 times last year to go to different events and locations in Cincinnati. The students love it. We've gone as far as Findlay Market. They love taking the streetcar and are always excited about those field trips. So I'm doing my part. I am training the future generation to use public transit. Now we need to make sure that we build this bridge so it can support an expansion of the rail system and that public transit. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder, come up and help yourself to some snacks, drinks, please. Next up is Richard Addison.
Kind of awkward having my back towards the audience, but I'll be all right. So my name's Richard Addison. I was born and raised in New York City. Most of my family consists of members of the Public Transportation Working Committee. I am currently a resident of Newport, and I currently work in Covington. I utilize public transportation most of the time, and there have been those 1 or 2 days out of the week where I have crossed the 4th Street Bridge. First off, as you can see, I am a person of size. So with that in mind, the current design is kind of like squeezing into a small hole, not allowing room for any of my fellow pedestrians, bikers, or other people who are crossing the bridge. Speaking on safety, the current design currently has a kind of a slope, and I think of my neighbors who have mobile challenges, those on crutches and wheelchairs. How do they fly down the bridge? And then I think of the new design, and I think of 4 lanes. And as a fellow speaker who spoke before me mentioned, as of right now with the current design and the roundabouts, I'm currently playing Frogger. Imagine 4 lanes playing Frogger, and for those of you who don't know what Frogger is, Google it. So I am for 3 lanes. That way, all of us can cross that bridge safely. Joggers, walkers, bikers, those with families and kids, our four-legged family members as well, and also our future residents who choose not to walk over to Covington, and as mentioned earlier in the presentation, those that do not have a vehicle. As a public transportation rider, I also, again, commute to and from work most of the week. I currently travel from Newport to Cincinnati and then to Covington. Oh, the joy would be if we have a bridge that's set up for public transportation, not just for a streetcar, but regular buses. Imagine the time that I would save. Not that I don't like the scenic view, but it would be nice from going to point A to point B as efficiently as possible, keyword being efficiently. I'm also for laying out the designs and laying out the track work, so to speak, now for a light rail system for cost-effective reasons and, as mentioned numerous times, to prepare for the future. And finally, even though I haven't been around this area for only about 10 years, I've only been here, but I'm proud to call this my home, and I'm proud to call my neighbors my family members. I think of them each and every day across the bridge, either through walking or riding with other people. And so I encourage all of you who have done the work so far, please continue to fight. And let's really think not so much of aesthetics and finances, but let's think of safety and let's think of what's right. And let's think of the bridge gapping both Covington and Newport and neighborhoods beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, up next, Kathy Cunningham.
Hello, my name is Kathy Cunningham, and I'm the president of Queen City Bike. Thank you. We are a local grassroots nonprofit that is 100% volunteer. Safe, enjoyable, and equitable access to biking and active transportation in general is at the heart of what we do, and this issue greatly affects our constituency. The 4th Street Bridge is obviously a vital connector in our region. Unfortunately, key aspects of the bridge replacement plan are still not aligned with substantial public input. Rather than speculate or make assumptions on why this is the case, I'm going to speak to core principles and data. But first, just an outline of key requests. Major ask is to maintain a 3-lane configuration on the bridge, as other speakers have been asking for. 4 lanes are unnecessary, they're harmful, they're expensive. More on this later. Second ask is complete the project as a teardown. The temporary 12 to 18 month inconvenience caused by a teardown is more than offset by the opportunity to preserve historic properties, which are so special to this area, and to have a smooth, safe, and efficiently aligned roadway for the next 80 to 100 years. On the Newport side, facilitate a seamless connection to Riverfront Commons Trail and to the Riverboat Road. And fourth, on the Covington side, coordinate with upcoming improvements to the 4th Street to ensure a safe and seamless integration. In my remaining time, I particularly want to focus on the importance and benefits of maintaining a 3-lane configuration for the bridge. So here's what we know is, first off, 3 lanes are enough. KYTC's own scoping study published in 2016 found that 3 lanes are enough for current and future traffic demands. Even at that time, it was uncertain whether the Ovation site would necessitate more capacity. But then since then, per Ovation's own website, the max build-out of office space has been reduced by over half. In addition, KYTC's own traffic count data shows major reductions in bridge use over time. Peak demand on the bridge occurred in, wait for it, in 1999. Since then, vehicle crossings have consistently been down, and they are currently down by more than half. Things have changed. 3 lanes are enough. Major second point is 3 lanes promote calm streets. 3 lanes are the right size for the 4th Street Bridge. and right sizing of roadways is a core principle of promoting calm streets and safe traffic speeds. With proper design, the benefits of calm streets unfold 24/7, and in contrast to police enforcement at no additional cost. KYTC's own updated design manual, which was released in September of 2022, champions the rationale and the priority for complete calm streets. It's time for the 4th Street Bridge to catch up to their own standards. And why are calm streets so important? Well, here we go. Calm streets save lives. Across the U.S., pedestrian deaths have hit a 40-year high. Nationally, on average, another pedestrian is killed every 84 minutes. And when you think about that, that's less than the length of this meeting. This has to change. Notably, per data from a company called Streetlight Data, the most dangerous streets involve the combination of fast-moving vehicles that are running alongside, a high concentration of retail and service locations, and pedestrians who are going about their daily life. And when you think about it, this is exactly the context of the 4th Street Bridge. Are you listening? Newport, Covington, Ovation, local businesses. So how do calm streets change this pattern of high death rates? First of all, slower traffic speeds save lives. A person struck by a vehicle at 40 miles per hour is 5 times more likely to die than if the vehicle had been going half as fast. Fewer crashes save lives. Per stats in KYTC's own design manual, increasing the bridge to 4 lanes could cause up to twice as many crashes. Adding more lanes is going in the wrong direction. Another major benefit is calm streets save money. Per 2019 data drawn from the NHTSA, from KYTC, and the Covington Police Department, and I'm happy to share my calculations with anyone who wants to see them, the estimated total economic cost of vehicle collisions in just Covington alone is $52 million every year. Compare that to the $68 million one-time cost of building the bridge. Calm streets save money. Also, it stands to reason that a 3-lane bridge, as others have pointed out, is going to cost substantially less than a 4-lane bridge. I think we can all agree that spending money wisely on public projects is a good idea. So I know time is limited here, so I just want to, I'm trying to share some data, but I just want to mention some other highlights of why calm streets are important. As many studies have shown, calm streets promote health. Calm streets attract talent, which is also clearly reflected in language from Ovation, as well as Covington's own Office of Economic Development. Calm streets preserve history, calm streets protect property values, and calm streets build wealth. As consistently shown across numerous case studies, calm streets cause retail and property values to go up, often by millions. So given all these benefits, how do we get calm streets? Well, the answer is pretty simple. It's strong local leadership and listening to your residents. This is in your hands, Covington Newport. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, Joe Hartke. Joe, you here?
So yeah, I'm Joe Hartke. I live in Covington by MLK, which is a 4-lane road if you're not familiar with it. Very similar to the concept that's being proposed here. And it takes forever to walk across that road, and while you're doing it, you feel completely exposed and like you could die at any second. And right now, even when you cross the 3 lanes that this bridge is, the signals are all messed up, there's left turns, you really don't feel safe how it is now. So I really can't fathom how they're going to make 2 lanes work with a right turn, or 2 right turn lanes, or a right turn from south and north, or it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sure they've got some sort of plan, but I just see that it being a complete nightmare trying to cross that space. The other thing I want to talk about is that the plans that I've seen they really just have the pedestrian space right next to the road, so you're just going to be kind of standing there looking at cars as they fly past you, and they're going to be flying because there's plenty of room and there's not enough cars on the road to slow it down. So you're just going to be walking there staring at cars, and it's really going to be a pretty unpleasant experience compared to what we have here with the spoke design. And they also don't really have, because the current bridge kind of has a bit of superstructure. So if you're walking over it on a hot day, you got a bit of shade, but most of them kind of just look like they have a couple poles, which aren't really going to provide shade. But you get that with the spoke design with these trees here. I hope those will be in the actual plan. But it's something that's really overlooked, just like keeping pedestrians shaded. You don't think about that when you just drive around a car, but that's something that we're going to be thinking about a lot, and the current KYTC plan obviously plans to remove a tree, I think, still. So it's something that matters, and it is important. So I'd really like to see 3 lanes or even less. I'll take less, but 3 is a compromise.
Thank you, Joe. Look for Joe on Twitter. All right, Joseph Adelino. Joseph, okay, maybe he bailed. Jose. Oh. You were quiet for once? Mary. Okay. Liam. Come on up, Liam.
Hello, my name's Liam. I live at 412 Garrard Street, which is arguably, I think, the closest to the bridge, which also makes me the closest to Newport. And I'm happy to see in these new updated plans we do have more travel lanes for pedestrians and bikers, because that is a major concern. I wouldn't go near that bridge if my life counted on it. I used to drive bike all the way over into Newport, the other direction. My main concern, and something I really want to think about, and I guess if this is my time to plea, I'd like to plea, think about our future. I represent the generation that is going to live in this city, that wants to live in this city. I was born here, and I've moved back, and I've lived all over the world. And let me tell you, everywhere I've been, public transportation and walkable, accessible cities is what people really need and what they really want. And especially, and I hope I'm speaking for my generation properly here, we want to be able to walk out of our house and hop on a bus or a streetcar or take our bike. We don't want to drive. No one enjoys driving except like when you're raging, and that's not what it's meant for. So if we can, please find it in yourself, whoever is in charge up there. I know this is a state-run project, but think about the future. Think about us, because we are the ones that are going to live here, and we really, really, really want an accessible, walkable bridge with streetcar access. It's just saying, something to think about.
Thank you, Liam. All right, Dylan Lurk. Welcome, Dylan.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name's Dylan. I'm a resident of downtown Cincinnati. Some might be wondering why am I here tonight? Well, I want to come out to support fellow regional residents of Covington and northern Kentucky for what is truly an important project for them and really for our whole region, because you have to think of transportation as transportation and the infrastructure that enables it as a regional asset. And so it's not just for Covington and for Newport to talk about, it's for all of us in this region to talk about and have our hand in. And so to that end, I am a regular user of this bridge. I walk and bike across it pretty regularly and even drive sometimes. And so I have a vested interest in ensuring that the walkability and bike facilities on this bridge are continue to be something that I want to use to come and support businesses in Covington and Newport. To the comment about driving, I've never once driven across the bridge and found myself in any extensive traffic at all. It's always free flowing, and so any expansion in capacity is just absolutely unnecessary in my experience. And so I'll conclude by saying that I think the spoke design is sensational, and everything about it we need to look at implementing in this project. And as a resident of Cincinnati, I want to support Covington and Newport residents and what they want out of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, up next, Simon James. Simon. All right, Matt Jacob. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt Jacob. I'm actually from over the Rhine, across the river, but I walk the bridge and bike the bridge and drive across the bridge pretty regularly. So I think it's important that regionally we speak out for good use of our regional transit dollars and a vision for the future. So I'm really glad that you guys are having this public comment today. I think it's important that designers can hear what the bridge needs to look, feel, and accomplish, not just a statistic of how many cars are going across, or maybe that won't be in the future, but also to learn how this bridge needs to function for people's lives. So I think it's really important that we're having a meeting like this. I'm here to offer some advice from what I've experienced in Cincinnati as someone that lives in over the Rhine, who takes the streetcar, who has been involved in a street calming project on Liberty Street that took it from 6 lanes down to 4 lanes. I think there's a win-win in this bridge design, and I'm really encouraged by what KYTC released today. I think them adding the pedestrian, the walking crossings on the side is an encouraging sign. I actually think it's a mistake to fight for 3 lanes versus 4. But I think that what we heard today, we already have the solution among us. We learned from the streetcar in Cincinnati that having a streetcar in mixed traffic is actually to its detriment. And we also learned that street calming measures make an impact on speeds. I think we could come to a win-win on this bridge design by keeping it 4 lanes, because apparently KYTC wants to spend all the money they can get. Let them. But hold firm on 2 streetcar lanes that we want as bus-only lanes now, so we get public transportation now. In Cincinnati, SORTA is doing BRT. This could be Tank's version of BRT now. And I think that opportunity is being completely missed in this design. I also think that fighting for better design, the comment about having shade on the bridge is an important one, because it's a long stretch. And I think that's something that KYTC can easily add into their design to make it better for pedestrians and people that are actually going to use the bridge outside of a car. Another thing from the Liberty Street road diet that was really helpful is pedestrian rest areas between sides. So on the Covington side, you only have to cross 2 lanes, you can rest, and then another 2 lanes. It doesn't feel as far. Those are easy things that can make it much more usable for people running, walking, biking the area. And it does slow traffic to have those features. I think with having 2 transit-only lanes and 2 driving lanes, this could actually be a bridge that has the capacity for whatever the future holds, so we only have to build it once, and it's the most efficient use of our transit dollars that we can do. So I hope both sides can come to a compromise and get the best thing for our region. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, we're down to our last speaker here, Tara Tucker. Welcome, Tara.
Tucker. I'm the chair of the tree board in Covington. At our meeting last month, it came up that none of the iterations of this bridge have made any accommodations for the historic cypress tree that's on the corner of 4th and Garrett. And I know a lot of people are going to say it's just a tree, why do you even care? The tree board and the forestry department have been spending a lot of effort lately in the last 10 years trying to get the city government to value our urban forest. And we're trying to combat heat islands in the city, and by not even considering a version of the bridge that would preserve this historic tree, they're undermining a lot of our efforts that we've made with the city government. I also live next to the 4th Street Bridge. I live in the Licking Riverside neighborhood, and it's very walkable currently. I mean, 4th Street isn't the greatest now. It's too fast, and I've seen multiple accidents next to my house where cars have flipped over from the 4th Street Bridge. So I feel like having more lanes is just going to encourage people to drive faster and cause more accidents like that. And I don't want to lose any more walkability in my neighborhood. And I feel like if we can manage with the Brent Spence Bridge being closed for several months, then missing this bridge for a year is going to be manageable. We'll figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. All right, last call. Anyone that hasn't signed up, would you like to speak? Come on up.
What's up? I am Daniel Chavez, originally from Milford, Anderson, just moved to Covington, and I love it here. I spent 3 years of my high school experience chained to an erg, rowing right underneath that river right there. And it sucks that none of you guys even pay attention to us. Yeah, but like, I don't know. Like, I'm sorry, guys. I'm the guy that's. Man, I feel like we talk about safety and we talk about like the community around it and the people around it, and maybe it's because I haven't been paying attention. I just got here, and maybe because like I don't know, I'm too terminally online, but I feel like a lot of us are. But it feels like no one's actually paying attention to the people that live underneath this bridge. For me, an ex-rower, someone who competed like on the national stage, our practice is the most important thing to us. If your bridge gets in the way of that, if their bridge gets in the way of that, we get angry. Especially since, you know, Cincinnati isn't really performing the way we want to on the national stage in the sports realm. We're the only guys that actually can show up and do something about it. Yeah, I don't know. It just, I just wish that like, I wish that it feels like this plan considers the community, but we are like one of the best shining examples of like how this community succeeds. That's all.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, anyone else? All right, Corey, you want to move to the next slide? All right, so that really concludes our program for tonight. We'll take some Q&A if anyone has any further follow-up questions. But next steps, call to action. We've got 2 meetings coming up. KYTC says they're going to present in Covington on Tuesday, 6 p.m. at City Hall, and then August 28th, 7 o'clock in Newport as well. And if you're on the email list, you'll get a reminder to sign up to attend those events. And I believe that's what Nolan said, yes. So,
August 15th would be our caucus meeting, which means that there must be a presentation, but it doesn't mean that there's a public feedback.
yeah, but I think it's really important. Yeah, I think it's really important that we show up for that meeting. Yeah, even if we just hold up a sign that says whatever you want, right? 3 lanes, streetcar, complete tear down, tree, save the tree. Very important. Thank you for caring for our trees. That's
Riverbank access.
yes.
None of their designs get you onto the riverbank.
Yes.
Ridiculous.
Yes. Yes. So this is our opportunity to be seen, and KYTC released their press release today, right? So it's not. I don't think it's a coincidence that they waited till today, but so we're moving the needle. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? All right. So, any questions for anyone? Yes, Brian.
I have a question. A practical question. I'm looking at Garrett Street up here, and northbound coming up the port. It's currently 1 lane right turn. Is that going to stay 1 lane right turn lane with your future plan?
I thought they were thinking about, it would be 2, middle lane could go right or left. You know what I mean? That's what I thought, but I
heard that they were planning to tear down the trees so they could put an extra turn lane.
yeah.
So, but if you go back down the block a little bit, here's my question. Where's all this eastbound traffic coming from? You're going to the historic district of Raleigh. That should get looked at anyway. Turn on Scott, make this road 2 lanes,
Right on.
2 blocks. Where is this eastbound traffic coming from? They need a second lane.
My theory, although they've denied this, but my theory is that they would get this done and use it as a bypass for when the Brent Spence Bridge has 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of construction on it.
But the Brent Spence, I've been to all the Brent Spence presentations, and they are not, there is not gonna be a minute that the Brent Spence is gonna be closed. It'll be backed up, but the main bridge will stay open while they build the companion bridge, and then the companion bridge will be open while they realign the main bridge. So it'll be backed up, but we don't want that going through historic court, yeah. They'll find- Yeah, they'll find- Yeah.
Because a new bridge will have enhanced structural capability.
Yeah.
So they will be able to handle heavier traffic. So it's not just more vehicles, but larger vehicles.
That's right.
And easy.
That's
But
right.
wouldn't KYTC shut the truck traffic, no offense to 12th Street, but over 12th Street across the Girl Scout Bridge? Would that be more efficient?
That doesn't have a direct connection where the 471 lane grade does. You have to go from 11 to 10.
Double A.
I'm turning really quick.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen double, yeah, they have a double A.
Yeah.
Another open bill. But you can't get that from the Scott, from the Girl Scout Bridge. Yeah, it's a little bit,
Yeah, it's not a real clean cut from the
Yeah.
that's true.
Well, I think yes, the possibility's been raised that it potentially a bypass, and that's the state has been really pushing hard to get this bridge done, and we're like, why are you so bent on getting this done? And right, yeah.
From a practical standpoint, you've got a choke point that's there, it's not going to change. Or is KYTC planning to tear down 4 buildings in the historic district?
No one's been able to at KYTC's. No one has been willing to give us a straight answer on why the 4th lane. The only reason that we've heard is it just has to be, and it's really I think unusual for engineers that do their work based on data to just say it has to be, which is, as several people have pointed out, against their own scoping study that they did in 2015. And if anything's changed, there's been less traffic. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that are still kind of in the nebulous, not clear to us, and we need to still go speak out and ask those questions. Yes?
Yeah, another question. Hi, Angel Road
Yeah. So the question is for everyone. Has there been any conversation with KYTC about vegetation, about greening up, sustainability, greening up the bridge, and that's we've shown in the renderings, like we've got planters and trees and some of it's aspirational, but yeah, certainly when you're out walking or riding your bicycle and you're out in the sun and it's 110 degrees in 2/3 of the country, right? We need to take that into consideration. And unfortunately, no, I don't think KYTC has any. It's not in their purview. It's not something that they do. They build roads, and if there's anything in the way of the road, then they clear it out. And yeah, there's a historic wall that is there.
Our neighborhood spent thousands of dollars restoring that limestone wall because so many people going too damn fast had run into it.
Yeah.
And it was a federal transportation grant. People worked hard to get that grant money. The overall project was like 25 grand, and we've had a lot of people talk about make sure not to lose that limestone at least.
Yeah.
When you take it out, but why do they have to do that?
Right. Yeah, for the fourth lane, and because they're keeping the existing structure up and building 2 lanes south of it, and there's a beautiful tree there, as well. That yes, Pete. What KYTC told us. So the question is there talk about turning 4th Street into 2-way? Is that they support a road diet on 4th Street and to take it down to 2 lanes. They said, put it in a bike lane, repurpose one of the lanes for a bike lane. The City of Covington at first said, no, we don't want a bike lane. We want wider sidewalks. And then they kind of came back and said, okay, well, we can do both. We can widen the sidewalks on 4th. And, we've shown a few small traffic pattern changes in our renderings, but KYTC is basically just going to maintain the status quo, except north on Garrard, when you're turning, there'll be what appears to be 2 turn lanes, which is really where the rock wall and the tree are. Pretty difficult to imagine. We can only say it's like the Girl Scout bridge, where you've got this like slip lane. It's like a highway on ramp, which really doesn't fit in with the character of the neighborhood at all. But their designs are very kind of nebulous, and so yeah, Brian, yes. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Brian brings up the point that they're planning on 12-foot wide lanes. 4th Street in Covington, the lanes are actually 10 feet. There aren't any shoulders, right, in 4th Street. This bridge will have shoulders as well. So it's going to feel really, 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 really wide. Yeah. No, they've actually made no comment on it, and I think that they've heard from everyone that's spoken out and said this is what we want, and they hired Rosales and Partners, which is designed some pretty cool bridges. They designed the Tillicum Crossing in Portland, Oregon. which is transit-only bridge. There's no cars, buses, light rail, bikes. So I think they've hired the right people. Whether they'll allow them to do that, is kind of, and they also have a budget, which we understand, which we were like, remove that lane and do a complete tear down. You're saving yourselves a lot more money, and then you can put more money into the aesthetics and the design and trees, things like that. I think that they've been doing things for such a long time the same way. Mike Beazold said at the Newport Commission meeting, nothing has been typical about this project. And I think it's just that now all of a sudden the taxpayers are saying, this is our money and this is how we want you to spend it. And usually the conversation has been, they say, this is what we're going to give you with your tax dollars and you're going to like it or not, but this is what you're getting. So, keep speaking out. I think we're all making a difference here. All right. We don't really want to carry out the snacks. So help yourselves, take some home with you. We got drinks up here in cans, take those with you. We're going to be cleaning up.